Hello and welcome to My Body, My Power podcast, where we shine our light, claim our worth, and empower the next generation. I'm your host, Kristen Rubis, a heart-led entrepreneur, mentor, and the creator behind the My Body, My Power movement. Here, we uncover authenticity, celebrate self-expression, and create a life and career that lights up the world. Welcome, Goddess. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to the My Body, My Power podcast. I'm your host, Kristen, and I'm deeply grateful to have an empowering conversation with Deborah. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Yay, thank you. I'm so glad you're here as well. So tell us a little bit about yourself and the amazing work you're doing in the world.
You know, when I get asked this question, I always like to frame it that I grew up in a functionally dysfunctional household.
Thank you.
And that really started to shape what I do in the world. Of course, I didn't know it at the time, but let's just start with I am a midwife to your most turned on life. And I work with women, and it's all about supporting you in getting back into a place of true embodiment, which leads you to a place of actual confidence, which leads you then to living a turned on life.
Beautiful.
And my clients actually have given me that title of being a midwife. They have said over these nearly 3 decades of the work that I've been doing, you have midwifed me back into like my true womanness, like who I am as a full-bodied, alive, turned on woman. So it did start growing up in a functionally dysfunctional household. Folks got divorced when I was young and both got remarried quite quickly. I then grew up with my mother and her second husband. That was a home of domestic violence and abuse. And we're all very resourceful. I want to remind everybody that. I think it's really important to know no matter what situation you're in, no matter what age you are, no matter what stage of life you're in, you're incredibly resourceful. Okay. And as a little kid, I didn't know the word resourceful, but I found out about a way to get out of that home. And it happened to be boarding school. So I was very fortunate to be able to figure it out and be resourceful and convincing. And I got myself to a boarding school, which was great because I got out of that home. The unfortunate thing, though, was I was really numbing myself and I started drinking. I was already drinking at a young age and I was doing some drugs. And that was basically, of course, to numb myself from the pain and everything that I had been living through.
Yeah.
And so at the end of my freshman year in high school, and too many people, but mostly women, have gone through what I'm about to share. At the end of my freshman year in high school, unfortunately, I was raped by the man I had bought drugs from in town.
Okay.
And that was my first sexual experience. And what that really did, and what this does to so many people who have experienced this, is that you disassociate, understandably, from your body. Right? So there's this separation from your essence, your soul, your life force, and this vehicle, I call the body a rental vehicle. We don't know how long we've got it for, but it's the one that's, we're traveling in this life with, right? So there's this disassociation that occurred at that time. And again, rightfully so, because it was a safe way to deal with everything that was happening. And I, like many people, did not tell anybody. I was petrified of getting kicked out of school, because if I did get kicked out of school, then I was going to have to go back to that house, which was right. So it was a really tough situation. And I was embarrassed. I thought it was my fault, right? All of these things that many people go through in those situations. And so I didn't tell anybody for 6 years. And when I finally broke my silence, I went to film school. I was going on the track to be a producer in the film business. And so I was in film school and I ended up making a film about the experience. It was, very sort of art housey, poetic version of it. And yet it freed me, right? And the lesson that I learned from that moment was whatever shame, whatever secret that we're carrying, that we are afraid to speak about, it is going to eat us up from the inside. And it is going to not only eat your life force, it's going to eat away at your confidence and your joy and pleasure in life. And so once I made that movie, I did not stop talking about it. I have shared with, obviously anybody who knows me or who has followed me for any amount of time knows you've heard this story at some point.
Yeah.
And I share it still to this day because it is such a pivotal piece of why I do what I do. So I want to cut to, I worked in the film business for a few years. It's what moved me from New York to Los Angeles, where I still live. Yeah. And I did that for a number of years, made big feature films with Hollywood stars and did all that stuff.
Wow.
And then I realized, though, I was repeating the theme of the abusive childhood.
Okay.
I was just doing it now within my career.
Okay.
We don't need to get into, Hollywood and all the stuff that, there's some great stuff there, but there's also things that, so I happen to repeat that. And now what's fascinating in the work that I've developed over these last nearly 3 decades, I call that, it's an echo of a kink. And so I want to explain what a kink is, because the work that I share, and I think you and I are aligned in this sense, that the foundation of everything that I talk about and the way that I work is everything is energy.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is energy. Quantum physicists have, proven this at this point, right? We have a lot more scientific, facts and evidence to back up what metaphysicians have known for thousands and thousands and thousands and, probably, again, long time. Like you go back to the Egyptians and way back when in the time of the pyramids and whatnot, right? They knew about energy work and that everything is energy. Right. So what we experience from 0 to about 10 years of age, those are the initial framework, if you will, of our understanding of life and the way that we view things. Now, when we go through challenges or traumas, little t or big T, those experiences, like every experience, great or not, are layered in our body. We all have heard of cellular memory. All right.
Yeah.
But the challenges and the traumas, those start to create this kink in the natural flow of your life force, right? The energy that is naturally moving through you from the moment you take your first breath.
Yeah. Wow.
So those little kinks or big kinks in the wiring, think of like a garden hose. If you go out to water your garden and, when the hose is like wrapped up, that situation. And then you're out there and you're like doing this with the hose and like, trying to
Isn't it working?
Yeah. So to get the water to flow, because the water's coming from the source, like that never stops.
Sure.
But it's getting stuck. And so just like that, our life force will get stuck. And what happens is then all that life force is in this area of the kink. And that energy, right? Your natural energy is now moving through this kink. And so the frequency of the original kink is what's getting emitted out into the world, which is why you will find yourself looping back to similar experiences you had when you were, younger, right?
Yeah.
Again,
Beautiful.
good ones or challenging ones.
Great explanation, by the way.
Okay. So there I was in the film business doing what I was like absolutely thought I was destined to do and loved and all the rest of this. And I had this epiphany. Holy shit. I am repeating. Yeah. This is the same flavor, the same stuff that I went through. And that is not why I'm here in this lifetime. Now, what was interesting was I really believe that everything does happen the way it needs to, which is tough to swallow when we're dealing with terrible things that do happen.
Big T's.
However, when I was in the film business, I was introduced to something called feng shui. Okay. Most people know what this is at this point, but in 1996, people didn't really know what it was. Anyhow, long story a little shorter, I opened a feng shui consulting business and I would have never been exposed to that, at an early time if I had not moved 3,000 miles across the country and been in a place where I was able to come out of the metaphysical closet.
Nice.
Because in New York, back in the late 80s, the metaphysics was not really cool. Like I was already into crystal healing and that kind of stuff, but I was, considered kind of a freak. So anyway, I opened that business, which was beautiful. And I share that piece of my story because it again echoes back to I didn't have a safe place
Hmm.
to live when I was growing up. I moved 7 times by the time I was 14.
Oh,
We already
wow.
talked about the household that, I lived in for a long time. And what I realized was not only did I love being able to create sacred space for people to thrive in, it was a way to transform and transmute the old narrative that
Sure.
home is not a safe place to be, right?
Right.
So that was part 1. Or actually part 2, film business, then part 2. But in any case, then 10 years later, I found myself at an event. It was a charity event to end violence against women and girls. It's called V-Day.
Yeah.
Started by a woman formerly known as Eve Ensler, who's now called V. She wrote the Vagina Monologues. And I had been following her for those 10 years and was really impressed. She said so many things that I believed in. Anyhow,
Totally.
it was in New Orleans. I was at the Superdome. The whole entrance was decorated like a big vulva. And so I walked in and, was wearing my Love Your Pussy t-shirt,
Nice.
I
Yep.
was in it. And all of a sudden I got stopped in my tracks by this like energy field, literally like I felt like I was beaming up Scotty in Star Trek. And I couldn't move. I was really frozen. And all I heard, and I call this a divine download, right? Like when you get these messages.
Yeah.
And I heard this exact phrase, Deborah, it's time to get up off your ass and do the work with women. And I was like, I don't know what you want me to do. I said, and I'm listening. So I had an incredible weekend. I know I have chills all over again too.
Me too.
I had an incredible weekend. I went home, came back to Los Angeles with a girlfriend at a coffee shop and basically said, oh my God, I know what I'm going to do. It was like, again, boom, just this divine download. And I said, okay, I'm starting a women's group out of my living room. And that was 2008. Yep. And so, and then it's been nearly, like I said, 3 decades of this particular, 2 decades from that, but of this particular iteration of my work, which has been about supporting women in living a turned on life. Right. So I share all of this because I do believe, and I know now after working with thousands of women in over 30 countries over all these years, that we all have intuitive wisdom. And that wisdom comes from within our bodies. Yes, I believe we have guides. I believe that we have, our angels and ancestors that are supporting us. But they speak to us through the body. And the voice of your people, if you will, or the divine or God, or however you relate to that.
Yeah.
Because the resonance in your body is undeniable, right?
Wow. Beautiful.
But we have to get into our body to be able to now have that kind of communication and trust it and live with it. Yeah. So a little bit of a roundabout way, but yes, this is some of the big moments, that led me to doing what I do.
That's beautiful. Thank you. And that was so articulated so well. And I mean, like we said, unfortunately, I think so many women walk that walk. And whether they get to where you are or not, like now you've created these containers and these opportunities for them to walk through it in a different way. Yeah, I was actually part of the V-Day event. We did an event here in Olympia, and I was just like, one dance is not enough. And so I organized 13 different flash mobs around my community.
Oh my God, I love that.
It was so awesome. And we did it at the mall. We kind of got kicked out by security. I'm literally like running out with my boombox from the mall. But it was such a beautiful day because of course I was on social media at that point. So I'm just like posted the schedule, posted all the places that we were going to be. And it was so amazing to see obviously women I knew and didn't know just show up at these places and do the break the chains dance and then back to work if they had to, and that was such a powerful movement and a powerful day. And that's so cool just to bring it back.
She's changed the world. I mean, so after that experience,
Yeah.
My charitable work, philanthropy still remains in that arena. And I ended up producing the vagina monologues 3 times here in Los Angeles after that, which
Very
I
cool.
will say was, so I had that epiphany at the V to the 10th event. And then 6 months later, I produced my first vagina monologues and we had a celebrity cast and it was incredible. And I have to say, as I was ushering, out of, because everybody, knew it was like Deborah Kagan, the feng shui consultant, right? And you think, how am I ever going to pivot? Like, how am I ever going to evolve into something different when this is so established? And I think this is also really important because I've worked with so many women who think there's no way that I can transition or I can change. And it is about, and every woman who has ever worked with me has heard me say this ad nauseum. They get mad at me sometimes. They're like, I know. But so the whole, and it's not complicated. Okay. What I'm about to say. The whole game is you take the next available step. Because we get so caught up in thinking we have to know all the things. And look, I know the work that I share so well because I have lived every bit of it. Okay. But so you got to just take the next available step. And I love that you did those mobs. So it was like, there I was. I just said, I have to produce the vagina monologues. And that production, which was 6 months later after attending the event. So it got put together really fast.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely epic. We raised so much awareness. We raised so much money. But I remember standing, because I also performed one of the monologues.
Oh.
Yeah. And then standing on stage as one of the performers, as also one of the, the producer of the event, it dawned on me, like, here I am. This is not just a moment. This was a portal into becoming the leader, representative, of what's possible for women in terms of being what I now call a sacred, sexy, and soulful woman. And it was put all of my gifts together in one place, right? It was the producing. It was, I'd been a speaker before, so being on stage and, and doing that. And of course, being of support in terms of women getting free. Totally. And that was a big pivotal moment in stepping through, that portal. Yeah, it was beautiful.
That's awesome.
And then we did it, 2 more
chills.
times. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, good for you. I mean, that's it. That's like soul on fire kind of moments where it's just like you get just pivoted into this new direction.
Yeah.
And it's part of your purpose and part of what you're going to be able to change lives through. Wow. Good for you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Well, what's a piece of advice you have for stepping into greater self-worth and empowerment? I mean, you touched a little bit on it, but are there other kind of pieces that you could share?
One of the most pivotal women in my life was my paternal grandmother. And I had her until I was 28. Saturn return time.
I was going to say Saturn return.
Saturn return. And, it's been 28 years now, I think, since she's been gone. And, from the body, because I still feel her all the time.
Yeah,
but
good.
she was, through all of the chaos, through all of the turmoil and just horror of my youth, she was the constant. She was amazing. Okay. And the advice that she used to always say to me, and she was so funny. She was like, I don't know, barely 5'1", right? Like adorable little, little girl. But such a powerhouse. And I feel like this was, I developed early in life. I had breasts, like at 12, but because I feel like it was always a little awkward, which is why I'm saying I think it was starting around 12, because she would put her hands, like she would stand right across from me and she would put her hands kind of like right on the top of my chest and tap me like this. And she was the only one who could call me Debbie. And she would tap my chest and say, Debbie dear, remember, always be beautiful from the inside out. And I didn't realize it until a couple of years into the work I do with women. But I realized that what she was saying was exactly what I'm supporting women in doing. It's not, right? We think beauty and we think, oh, the outside and the blah, blah, blah. No. It literally is when you are turned on and your life force and I call it mojo, right? that life force that is inside. And when that light is on, you are shining and you are the most beautiful because of that inner beauty. When we're angry, when we're pissed off, when we're walking around in life with, chips on our shoulders and grudges and unhealed anything, there's a lot of mud and muck and frankly ugliness, that's inside.
Sure.
And all of that can be transmuted and transformed. And that inner beauty is what's going to allow you as a woman to feel stunning and gorgeous, even when you have no makeup on and your hair's on top of your head or all frizzy and fucked up and whatever it might be, and bloated and, menopausal and like all the things. But you know what? When the light's on inside, you do feel great. There's that little ounce. And I walk around my house, like yesterday I had a day of just a lot of inner work and whatnot and, not necessarily feeling outwardly, right, gorgeous. And I still look in the mirror and I will say, I've never been a good winker, but like, hey there, babe, hey there, gorgeous. And so that's advice that is so simple. And yet if you actually live it is deeply profound. And I always say, because again, the things that I share and that I teach, and I've developed a framework which I call the 6 sacred gates. And this framework and everything that I share, like, it's not rocket science. You've probably at this point heard many of the things that I say, but the way that they're put together, there's something about that alchemy of the way it's put together and these 6 sacred gates that make it make sense differently, where there's an ease and a grace to it. Because it doesn't have to be complicated. I've done the complicated. I've lived that, I've done that. And so I've put this together for you so that you can have more ease and grace and not have so much discomfort. And so, like I said, these things that are seemingly so simple actually can be the most profound.
And that's usually how it goes. It's the subtleties where it's just, they're not these big, profound things. It's like you're saying, when you're feeling bloated and not your most beautiful self, are you still loving yourself?
Yeah.
And offering yourself acknowledgement and value and worth and all that things, because that's it. I mean, I work more with younger girls than I do adult women. And it is just trying to embrace like that unique beauty inside. And how do you ignite that inner fire? So then that's what's going to, exude out in your world. But yeah, I kind of just say like it's a roller coaster. You're going to feel great some days, you're going to feel down some days. And that's kind of being in this human suit and this body, especially as women with menopause or, with menstruation and motherhood and menopause and all those things. Like, I mean, menopause rocked me. I had no idea what that was going to be like. And my mom didn't have she had like 3 hot flashes and she was done. And they say you kind of mimic what your mom went through. I know. I was like, well, how come they're not stopping? She only had 3. But yeah, I mean, it just was this whole other part of embracing our body and loving ourselves from the inside out. And so I just think we go through all of these life stages and transitions. And that's really the key, is to still be able to love yourself.
And first of all, I love it's like, it makes me so happy that you're doing this work with younger women, because I can't even imagine if I had access to that when I was younger.
Totally.
Like how much, what a shortcut, And what's so interesting as you bring up all these stages is, I personally am going through a whole new era with, being post-menopausal now, but that with everything that has been bringing. And let me tell you, it has not been easy. One of the hardest things for me, I started having hot flashes post-menopausally. I thought, I just missed out on all this. No.
Oh, wow.
But also it's the mood stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And that, again, nobody really tells you. You just think you're a little crazy.
Right.
And I am so grateful for all of the work, because it has been a continued lifesaver in this new era, and having the opportunity to fall in love with myself all over again, because there was the bits of like not loving of self, and now the body's changing again, and all the things that come with that. And so, I've been a yoga practitioner also for decades.
Yeah.
Did my yoga teacher training 27 years ago and all that. I never ended up doing that professionally, but I bring it up because it's like one of the things I love about yoga. And it's the same thing I love about the work that I do. Every day is a new day on the mat, right? You could have done the most advanced pose yesterday and you get back on the mat today, right? And you try to go in that pose. And for some reason, it's not quite happening as easy as it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty, because every day is a little different. Where's your hormonal cycle? What's happening with the cosmos and, with the as above, so below. And these tools are lifesavers and they will never expire. They will never expire. You can use them for the rest of your life.
Definitely. Yeah. And that's my goal, working with the girls, is giving them tools. And I meet them when they're in their 20s, when they came to camps at 12. And it's so, so wonderful to get that feedback of like, wow, you helped me feel more confident in high school, and whatever they share. It just is always so heartwarming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good for you. Thank you. Well, what does my body, my power mean to you? I ask this to every interviewee.
It's, there's so many layers to that. The word that's coming through is sovereignty.
Thank you.
And being sovereign, because there's a lot, as we all know, going on in the world today. And certainly, I live in LA in the US, but my body, my power is about being sovereign. It's about being able to, make choices, have a connection, a conscious connection with the wisdom of my body.
Thank you.
And following through with what it asks for. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Perfect. I love it. That was short and sweet. Were there other ways that you discovered unique gifts or messages? I mean, you're sharing how you're using them today. Do you want to share any other gifts or any other ways that you're using it in more detail with the women that you work with?
Gosh, my toolbox is quite varied.
Yeah.
It's really quite varied. I'm going to bring it to astrology for a second. I've been studying astrology also for 30 years. My other grandmother, my maternal grandmother, who came from Austria, she immigrated to the US and escaped the war. And she was tough, and she was a powerhouse. But she had this, I think it was Linda Goodman's astrology book. Because I think she was one of the first real, astrology books that was out there and had some popularity. It's a hardcover. Anyway, I still have it. And she's red ribbon wrapped around it because the pages were all falling apart. But I remember looking at it as a kid and, like a teen or something. And I thought, oh, I'm an Aries, and let me, find out that stuff and read your horoscope. But then of course coming to Los Angeles, the land of, openness and metaphysical and, all that kind of stuff. I had my first astrology reading. And so I bring all this up. And so it got me fascinated. And if I get fascinated, then I will really start to do a deep dive and study things. But why I'm bringing it up is because I learned that Chiron, which is the wounded healer, right, in terms of the representation of that in all our charts, mine is sitting right at what's called the point of the midheaven, which is the point of our career. And it really helped me make sense of all the wounding that I, at that point, had experienced. And I've shared some of that with you today. But it made sense of it in that what I personally, Deborah, go through, the trials, the pains, the tribulations, are meant to be transmuted, digested, transmuted, and then the gift of how that transmutation happens and that healing, that is what I am meant to share in the world. Right. That is part of my purpose here. And so I bring that up because the question is like other gifts, right? Like, and so my toolbox is really varied to the point that I utilize astrology with my clients at this point. We look into what's happening with them, or how are they. Some clients just want to know the basic blueprint, right? And once you understand that blueprint about yourself, I always say it's like, the blueprint of a house. If you're going to renovate, let's look at what's a load-bearing wall that really is not going to come down, right? And let's look at the other areas that are, more malleable, and what's the best avenue? What are the best colors, to decorate that new area with? So Some clients just want to know that. And, and other tools, from aromatherapy to, again, to many different women's empowerment and embodiment pieces that I share. But I think, one of the things that's coming through to say about that is our gifts and what we're here to share will continue to evolve as you evolve, as long as you are open to and receptive to them.
Thank you.
Yeah. 2 years ago, I had a very empowering experience. I travel on my birthday based on astrology, solar return. And so I never know where I'll be in the world because I go wherever sets up the best solar return chart. And I will always check LA. And if LA is a good chart, great, I stay. But if it sucks, then get me out of here. So 2 years ago, I was in France. I was Marseille, France. That was the spot to be. Long story short, turns out the Cave of Mary Magdalene is about an hour outside of Marseille. And I went. And I had I've had very profound spiritual experiences in my life. I wrote about many of them in my book, Undressed. And anyhow, that experience in the cave, which I happened to have the cave to myself for an hour on the second day I was there, it was quite magical and mystical. And yeah, it changed many things for me personally and has altered my work. And so I bring that up because the intuitive and the channeling that I do was not something that I was as public about.
Okay.
And so it has opened a doorway, right, to share that more freely for myself and with others, right? And that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So, again, it's an invitation and an encouragement for everybody listening or watching that as long as you're open and if you allow yourself to be receptive, your gifts will continue to unfold and your confidence with them and whatever fears might have been around them, they will start to dissipate and you will be able, to get more free. This game doesn't end until you take your last breath.
Beautiful. Thank you. Well, what does radical self-care mean to you and how has it played a role in your journey?
Girl, that's like my life.
I was gonna say, boom.
I'm just like, I am the ultimate, put your oxygen mask on first person.
Yeah.
Again, I say all the time, fill your, if your cup ain't full and it's not overflowing, don't for other people.
Yeah.
Don't because it's going to bite you in the ass.
Yeah.
And it's a really tough one for so many women to live. We've just been so indoctrinated to do everything and be everything for everybody else before ourselves.
Right.
And I don't know what else to say. It'll just bite you in the ass. And so, I take time for myself. I turn my phone off. I hang out in nature, hug trees, stare at the ocean, talk to the hummingbirds in my backyard, and the butterflies.
Yeah.
So, my first book is all about that. Find your me spot. I mean, it's literally, that book was written to support you in discovering ways to easily be with your senses, which is a great way for self-care and also a great way for you to activate that life force. So turn that inner light on. Yeah.
And were there others? I mean, I know that so much of the work when we're doing the healing work, like doing somatics and getting into the body to release that cellular structure, is there different modalities that you have used over the years to really, other than yoga, to really get into your body and work with things somatically?
Yeah. I mean, breath work is a big deal.
Yeah.
I'm also trained a breathwork facilitator. And so not just what people I think now think of as breathwork as this very fast, get into this sort of out of body state. I'm talking about embodied breath work. So so there's been breath work. There's different somatic exercises. Dance, of course, is a big deal, and a beautiful, beautiful one. And also working with your sexual energy, which is, people can get very activated around that term. When I say sexual energy, I literally mean your life force, right? Because again, we look to nature and the sun is making love to the earth every day. Okay. And there's all sorts of things in nature that are getting it on, but it's sexual energy. It is life force, right? It is Again, quantum physicists, they've called this the God particle, but it is the energy behind all things in life. And that is sexual energy. So there are some practices that will help to activate, allow you to get more comfortable with that. And I wrote about those in my book, Undressed. So there's that resource for people who are interested.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, do you have any events or things coming up? Are you currently holding sessions, or how do people learn about your work?
So what I host a mentorship that is a year-long container. And so that's been an ongoing piece for over in our 11th year. And so that is, enrollment opens every spring and every fall for that. But the place that I hang out is Instagram. On Thursdays, there's a live that is happening. It's called Divine Downloads with Deborah. And so I'm sharing your weekly, a little dose of feminine fuel for your week.
Beautiful.
So that's a place to come hang out with me at Deborah Kagan. And I highly recommend, of course, my books. They're both available where you buy books. And so let's find your me spot as well as Undressed.
Beautiful. Good for you. I didn't know you were also an author.
I am an author. And I should mention also, I have a podcast. It's called The Real Undressed, also available where you listen to podcasts.
Beautiful.
And there's over 350 episodes. And that's... Yeah, that podcast is really my passion about the conversation around sexuality and spirituality. So I have, there's an interview every week with an expert in one of those areas, or somebody who, blends the line between the two. And then there's what I call my solo episodes, which are affectionately called Truth and Tequila Tuesdays. Because your girl loves the agave. So that's where you'll get a dose of some wisdom, a little bite of wisdom with me sipping on some agave. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any final words for our listeners, or one last thing to share?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, I want to remind everybody that your presence is a present and it is needed here. You're here for some reason. You don't have to know exactly what that reason is. And everything that you do to heal yourself, to transform your kinks, right, that I mentioned, to have that inner light turned on, you're not only doing it for yourself, you are actually doing it for all the people around you, because your energy waves ripple and they ripple out. And we don't know who it's going to affect or who it's ultimately going to touch. But what we do know is that your transformation is affecting the all. And the more of us that do that, the higher the frequency we can have on this planet, and the more love and yes, the more light there will be. So that's what I'd like you to know.
That's the perfect way to end. A woman, amen to that. Awesome. Well, thank you, Deborah. This was a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate getting to know you a little more, and just your presence is just so beautiful. I can feel your energy all the way up here in Washington State.
Yay!
So
thank you for
so much
me,
for
really.
your
And
time.
thank you for having the show, truly.
Yeah, it's been really fun. Well, thank you to our listeners for stopping by, and we will see you next time. Community Power Rocks.
Thank you for joining me on this journey of empowerment and connection on the My Body, My Power podcast. If you loved today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who inspires you. Together, we're creating a ripple effect of confidence, courage, and light. Until next time, Goddess, keep shining your power.